Hello and welcome to my channel, Naughty Gnome Crafts. My name is Sarah and you can find me as Naughty Gnome on Instagram. Today's video is going to be a review of the Zadie jumpsuit. But before I get started, I am wearing a self-drafted, I didn't use a pattern, I knitted a poncho out of 5 different colors of Hedgehog Fibres Twist Sock. And it's really cold today, so I just threw this on over a t-shirt and some leggings, and I'm just really comfortable and warm. I realized I forgot to mention this in my previous video where I was wearing it, but now you know what I'm wearing. So as I mentioned, today we're going to be reviewing the Zadie jumpsuit. I made this jumpsuit as part of a challenge. My friend Michelle of Michelle Sews Again is hosting a challenge in the month of October called sewpurpletoendalz, and it's a tribute to her father who passed away from Alzheimer's. The purpose of the challenge is to sew up something purple and to raise awareness for Alzheimer's disease. And Michelle is actually donating some money for every garment that is made for this challenge to Alzheimer's research, which is wonderful. And I was really happy to take part in the challenge. And there is still some time left before you can enter it, through October 31st. So it's not too late to sew up something purple and take part in the challenge because it's for such a wonderful cause. I will link Michelle's video where she talks about the challenge in the description box below, and you should really go watch it. It's really touching and really important, I think. So I had wanted to make a jumpsuit with some linen rayon fabric that I had in my stash. I had 4 yards. And I was originally thinking about doing a McCall's pattern, but I've wanted to make the Paper Theory Zadie jumpsuit for a very long time, but there were some things that were holding me back from doing it, and mainly that was the sizing. So a lot of people have made the Zadie by now. I've seen many different reviews, and most people, it seems, recommend sizing down 2 sizes in the Zadie in order to get a fit that's not quite as baggy and oversized. The issue that I ran into is that my measurements put me in the size 8, and so therefore I cannot size down 2 sizes because the pattern starts at a UK size 6. Looking at the finished garment measurements for the size 6, the smallest size the pattern offers, I just thought that there was still going to be too much ease in this jumpsuit to be comfortable for me. And therefore, for a long time, I was just like, well, I just can't make the Zadie because it would be too big for me. But I thought about it some more. I looked carefully at each of the finished garment measurements, and I was like, you know, I actually think that I could make this work, because if I just remove 2 inches of ease out of each of those measurements, bust, waist, and hips, then I think that it would be a comfortable amount of ease for my body type, and I think I could do that. So I went ahead and bought the pattern. I think I mentioned this before, but I did have some issues with printing it out. It did not want to print to scale. It took me a little bit of trial and error to get that to work, and that's kind of unusual for me, so I just wanted to make a note of that. And then I, printed out my pattern, taped it together, and I started to make the alterations. So the first thing that I did was I altered the bodice. So I wanted to keep the shoulder line the same. And so for the front piece, I did a 2-inch small bust adjustment, and I maintained that adjustment all the way through the waist. So for the front piece, where I drew in where my bust point was, and then I narrowed that by 1/2 inch for an overall 2 inches. I'm sorry, I'm telling you wrong. I did a 1-inch small bust adjustment because I wanted to make everything equal on the front and back. I wanted 2 inches overall, so I took 1 inch out of the front, 1 inch out of the back. Sorry, I made that correction. So I did a 1-inch small bust adjustment, which means that I overlapped 1/2 inch of the bust point, and then I continued that all the way down to the waist so that I was also removing that 1/2 inch out of the waist seam, and I preserved the length of the bodice because that seemed fine. So for the back, I removed that 1/2 inch, again keeping the shoulder line the same, and then I just chose a spot that did not have anything going on, so there were no darts or anything, or no pleats in the way, and I just drew a line down to the waist seam, and then overlapped at where the bust line was, that 1/2 inch, and continued that down to the waist for the 1/2 inch. So that took a total of 2 inches out of the bodice. Now for the pants, because they are a wide leg, I decided that the best course of action was just to remove a 1/2 inch from both the front and the back through the entire pattern piece. So, you know, starting at the waist, going all the way down to the hem, I was going to remove 1/2 inch, which does make the legs 1 inch smaller. But as I said, because it's such a wide leg, I figure it's still going to be plenty wide enough. I'm not going to miss that extra inch. And that was just the easiest thing to do. I didn't have to worry about like hinging, and, you know, I could just take that 1/2 inch out of the entire leg on both the front and the back. And that was like the simplest thing that I could think of. I should add here that I'm not an expert on fit. I basically don't know what I'm doing. I'm just doing it by trial and error. These may not be the correct way to do things. It's just the way that made logical sense to me. So on both the front and the back pieces, again, I chose a spot where there were no pleats, there was no pocket, there was nothing in the way, and I just slashed all the way down the leg, overlapped it by 1/2 inch, and put it back together. So by doing that, I took out what I had intended to take out. I removed 2 inches from the bust, 2 inches from the waist, 2 inches from the hip, and then the 1 inch from the legs. And that is how I modified the Zadie to fit my body type. And I definitely think that that was the correct thing to do. I am really happy with the way that it fits. I definitely think that if I had made the size 6 just straight out of the packet, I wouldn't have liked it. I think it would have been too baggy. I don't think it would have looked good on me. And so I'm so glad that I took the time to make those adjustments. Even though it did take me several hours to do these adjustments, I'm glad that I took the time to do it because I just think that the fit is really good. Now, in regard to the length of the pants, I knew that they would probably be a little bit too long, but I just went ahead and left them as is initially. And I decided to figure that out after I had already sewn them up together because from my experience with trying to shorten the Megan Nielsen Flint pants, I knew that I really needed to try on the jumpsuit with different shoes and decide at that point how much I wanted it to be shorter. So I just waited for that step. So the next step after that was cutting it out. So the Zadie says that you can cut out the jumpsuit out of a pretty small amount of fabric, but their cutting layout is like really squeezed close together, and it's on a single layer. I didn't do that. I cut it out on a double fold because my cutting table is not very large, and it's just really hard for me to cut things out on a single layer. So I just went the lazy way. I cut it on the fold, and by doing that, I did waste a lot more fabric. I had 4 yards, so I had plenty, but I really only ended up with about a yard left and then some really odd shaped scraps. So I am a little bit sad. Like, I probably should have taken the time to go ahead and do the cutting layout like they said, because I think it would have saved a lot more fabric. And if I were to make this jumpsuit again, I would do that. But I didn't this time, and it worked out okay because I had plenty of fabric to start with. But I do think that I wasted more than I really needed to. The construction of the Zadie is really easy. I can see why this pattern is so popular because it's just easy to understand. It's quick to sew up. The only thing that I didn't particularly like is the way that the binding is sewn on. They have you do it as a double fold binding, and you just fold it over and then stitch it down. I kind of prefer it more when you do it in a 2-step process where you like sew it to the garment, then turn it to the inside and top stitch it down. If I did it over again, I'd probably do it that way just because I think it's a little bit cleaner. But this way worked out fine, no issues with that. Oh, there is another fit adjustment that I totally forgot to tell you about. I'm sorry about that. So I did check the rise of the pants, and they were going to be way too long. And so I ended up shortening the rise for the entire pants by 2 inches on both 2 inches on the front and 2 inches on the back. And then I took an additional 1/2 inch out of the center back because it was definitely longer there than the rest of the garment. So I took a total of 2.5 inches out of center back and then 2 inches everywhere else. And by doing that, it shortened the rise to the point where I'm really happy with where it sits. It's not uncomfortable in any way. It's still a little bit dropped, but it's just not as dropped as it was originally drafted. Now, by doing that, I forgot, because I shortened the rise by 2 inches, I should have taken 2 inches out of the pocket as well, and I just forgot to do that. So when I went to sew the pockets, they didn't match up, and so I had to kind of ended up trimming 2 inches off the top of the pocket, But I went back to the pattern piece and I fixed that for next time so that it'll all be nice and lined up. So yeah, those were all the fit adjustments that I made. So as I said, the sewing was really simple, very quick to do, and then the only thing that I had left was to figure out the length. So I tried on the jumpsuit. This time I was smart and I tried on every single pair of shoes that I thought that I might want to wear with this jumpsuit to figure out where I wanted to hem it. And I kind of took a happy medium. You know, like I tried it on with sneakers, I tried it on with ankle boots, and you know, like some of the shoes might look better with it a little bit lower, some of the shoes might look better with it higher, and I kind of just tried to go in the middle of like all of those lengths and just pick the one that was sort of the average. And that's where I cut, or I actually didn't cut it, that's where I hemmed my pants. I forget what the original hem is supposed to be. I think it's maybe like 1.5 inches or something, and I did not trim off of these because I figured it would be helpful to have a nice deep hem for the weight. So I just folded the hem under and stitched it down. So this has a pretty deep hem. It looks like it's about 3 inches or so, and I think that that worked out fine. I did go back and modify the pattern piece so that I just cut it off so that next time I can just do the thinner hem that the pattern calls for. But yeah, I did end up shortening it by about 3 inches. And I think that that worked out great. I'm super happy with that. So I hopefully will be inserting some footage and some pictures of me wearing the jumpsuit. I am just so thrilled with the way that it fits. It will definitely be making another one of these. I love the design of it. I'm looking forward to wearing this all year round because I think I can go ahead and layer pieces for the fall and winter, either wearing like a jacket or a sweater or a cardigan over top, or I could wear a t-shirt underneath, or I could do both to help winterize it. But yeah, I really love this color. I could not be more happy with the way that this jumpsuit turned out, and I will definitely be making more in the future. So I'm so happy that I took the time to make all those adjustments and do all the work that I needed, because now that I've done it, the next time I can just grab my fabric, cut it out, make another one, and it'll be really simple. So that was all that I had to say about the Zadie jumpsuit. Don't forget to check out Michelle's video about the Sew Purple to End challenge. Go check out the hashtag on Instagram and see all of the beautiful purple makes that people are doing for the month of October. Thank you so much for watching my video. I appreciate that you take time out of your day to watch my videos, and I will see you again next time.